Do I take a roll, please?
Mr. Bailey?
Present.
Mr. Brennan?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Present. And I'd like to welcome Councilman Bailey to the team. Welcome.
Good to be here.
All right. Before we're going to approve the minutes, let's make an addition to the agenda, and we're going to add an executive session, an update on the convention center. So if I get a motion to approve an adopted
So moved.
agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Aye. Okay, the next approval of minutes, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Aye. All right, let's go into our presentation. We'd also like to welcome Mr. Rubel. Welcome to the other side of local government. So thanks for being here and looking forward to your presentation.
Great, and thank you for having us here. So just introduction, I guess we're live streaming. I'm Jeff Rubel. I'm with the new organization, Columbia Area Development Partnership. Kate Bugby is the vice president. She's here with us today as well.
Do we need him to go to the podium or?
The mics are on.
Oh, the mics are on? Okay, great. All right, perfect. All right, you're good.
So one of the goals with the new organization was to be a little less transactional and be more strategic. Part of that was bringing the private sector to the table. So we wanted to have a longer range view. That's our goal today is to be more strategic, to engage you on one of the big topics right now, which is this commercial development program. You know, the program, when we were preparing this, I remember I spoke to one of our attorneys and she gave me kind of some perspective. She's like, think about it. There's 46 counties in South Carolina. We're the only ones with a program like this, particularly at this scale or scope. There might have been one off somewhere else, but this program has taken on a life of its own. We've looked at it, we tend to look at it every 3 years and kind of see what we're doing. That's what the goal is today, is to engage you guys, get your thoughts, but talk to you a little bit about where we go with this program. The original goals were fairly simple. It was to address high taxes, spur more development. You know, at one point, I think Steve Benjamin wanted us to address more parking. The program, as I mentioned, has kind of taken on a life of its own. So where you see other local governments, for instance, Greenville did TIFs in order to develop their downtown. You see other communities doing bonds. In Charleston, they have an affordable housing program, a fund. This program has really taken on a lot of those activities for Columbia. So you don't see us really doing many TIFs anymore. We're doing a multi-county industrial park, which is the enabling tool in this program. So we've gone through several iterations. We started back in 2014. That was before I joined, at the time, the county. My predecessor, I think, just kind of inherited this. I don't know exactly where it started, but I think the concept was you had developments like the one at 650 Lincoln Street, which was Holder Development out of Atlanta. They built that big student housing complex, zero taxes for the community. You had developments going to Casey. So I think you said it best, Councilman, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So I think that was what really spurred the origin of this program. In 2018, we expanded it. That was a request from the city to extend and expand. In 2021, again, you guys came to us and said, would you consider other aspects? But the other big change there, really kind of happenstance, but I was at a birthday party one night and Bob Mundy was there. If you know Bob Mundy, he has Estates Development, which has done a lot of the work on Divine Street. And he was complaining about this program. He said, you're just lying in the pockets of out-of-town developers. He said, some of us are here and we're doing it without all this help. And we thought, how do we correct for that? How do we make sure that if we provide incentives, that they're not just giving themselves a bonus and going back to Dallas? we came up with the whole concept of public infrastructure. And basically that was a goal of making sure that the money stayed in Columbia. The first way we did that was with structured parking. We said, okay, if you build parking garages, that keeps the money, we'll let you apply it toward that. And then we came up with a list of other public infrastructure that we wanted to aim, but the whole goal was just to keep the money here. In 2023, I think you guys came to us with a list of about 10 different items that you wanted changed. We incorporated most of those. And then last year, we, for the first time, and part of this was because so much of the development had occurred in the city, but there were deals outside the city that said, hey, we like to build, but we can't do it out here. We don't need to build structured parking. And that's when we started addressing workforce housing. So basically, we put in a workforce component that said if you create, I'll get to that slide later, but if you create housing for nurses, policemen, manufacturing workers, we'll give you incentives toward that. So that's a long evolution. This is just to give you a rough idea, but the best accounting, we can do 3.3 billion built overall, 286 million last year. You can see just examples of what we've done. To go back to that, though, notice that 3.3 billion and substantially less actually being built. That's a problem that we want to try to address. So the projects run really the array of priorities. So for instance, the hotels, we started incentivizing hotels to meet that NCA requirement, the eight minimum hotels. So that addresses a priority. We needed more Class A office. So we've done incentives for some of the deals over at that big office building in Bull Street. I mentioned affordable housing, really the transformational nature, all of Columbia, core properties. If you think about economic development, you really want to build from the inside out. And that's a difficult conversation with some of the county council people that represent urban or more rural areas. But you look at what core property is going to do for downtown and change everything. And I think it has a ripple impact across every economic development project we work. To give you an example, with Volvo, they originally were going to locate on the west side of I-26. That site blew up. Usually you forget it. They're walking out the door, they're going on to another state. They jumped the interstate and found a site on the east side. And the only reason they did that was because they fell in love with Charleston. They love downtown Charleston. The more we can improve downtown Main Street, I think it'll be transformative for everything we do in the whole region. We have to start with downtown. So the big contributing factors were high taxes and Act 388. I'm sure you guys know all about that, but starting off with the taxes, we are now this is in the city of Columbia, Charleston's about 60% of our taxes. Greenville's about 68%. Interestingly, the city of Lexington is now higher than the city of Columbia, and Casey is 4% higher than the city of Columbia. So we've done a pretty good job of keeping our taxes down, while some of the other communities that we would compete with have gone the other way. So I think the city of Lexington is probably now in a similar position to where we are, which is they have development that's sitting on the sidelines and would invest but for property taxes. This is the real numbers. You can see that money gets passed down to the renter. So it makes it truly unaffordable. If you talk to some of our developers like PMC, they're just like, we'll do deals all day long in Philadelphia or Miami because the taxes are so much more reasonable. The impact on Act 388, I don't want to belabor this, but 388, what it does is it artificially tamps down existing properties and it creates a barrier to entry for new properties. So, I'm sorry, but let me back up. On that, I think we did some calculations. We estimate about 18% difference on average. So on the average deal, the difference between having been there for 10 years versus coming in new is about 18%. So when we're trying to correct for both taxes, this is a big impact as well. By the numbers, you can see how many deals we have going. I think it's 34 million, about 80 to 90 projects. It's been a huge undertaking on a staff level, and I'll address that later as well. From a student housing standpoint, USC is anticipating about 3% annual growth. A lot of these universities are worried that they'll see a decline, a dip. I think it's the end of the baby boomers, that sort of generational change. What they've told us is there are so many out-of-town applications from folks up in Northeast that they don't anticipate any declines whatsoever. They said that they see an endless demand for luxury apartments. So that 737 Gateway is sold out before it opened the doors. Frankly, it's almost staggering how much folks are willing to pay for nice apartments down here, particularly when they're from the Northeast. If anything, it's created some equity issues. The in-state students from South Carolina can't afford those places. Last, the priority they think will be on walking distance. So if we do get oversaturated, the housing that out not walkable to campus will be the ones that lose. So they say prioritize stuff that are sites where they can walk to campus.
I think the two things that people are willing to pay for are safety and quality of life.
Exactly it. So attainable housing. Our whole goal of this update presentation was to approach this with data. Like, let's make some informed decisions. When this program started, it was pretty controversial. There were a lot of folks that didn't think we should be doing this. And if you look at an Economics 101 book, it's clear that we should not be doing this program. We are the exception. Again, only place in South Carolina that we're doing this. Our thought was, hey, let's look at where we want to go. So for instance, attainable housing. How many market rate apartments do we need in Columbia? How many attainable or affordable housing? How many units do we need? The city did a study, the county did a study. The county didn't include the city, and the city, of course, didn't include the county. I think we need to consolidate those and come up with raw numbers. But then what we'd love to be able to do is come back to you and say, this is the number we need. Let's work toward that goal. And let's consider sunsetting this program when we get there. The big number, we didn't have all the data for workforce housing, but we do have this number, and this I think came from your study, the city study, but it's not a good number. So 47% of the population spends more than 30% or more of their income on housing. That makes it very difficult to raise a family, live above paycheck to paycheck. I would suggest to you that's a challenge that we, as a county and a city, we need to address. So again, we need to come back to you with better data about how many units we need, but I would suggest to you we keep on addressing that for the time being. Hotels, I think we touched on that earlier. We need 8 full-service hotels. I think we're at 5. We just incentivized the one over at Bull Street. That gets us to 6. What I would suggest is if we can get to 8, maybe we get out of the hotel business and just let the market take care of itself. Structured parking was an initial, I asked Jeff Palin, I said, Steve Benjamin told us you needed 8,000 spaces in downtown Columbia. We don't know where he came up with that number, but what we have figured is that we don't have very good data on parking. The university's not planning on building any more parking. They think we have a walking problem, not a parking problem. I don't know for sure. What I would suggest is let's do a parking study and look at where parking's needed and then evaluate each deal on a case-by-case basis. So if we have a developer that comes into the Vista and they're going to build structured parking, you could say, okay, we need another 500 spaces or 200 spaces in the Vista. Let's require them to make that public.
I think we could also kind of look at, as part of this $1 billion economic model, percentage of that model has to go toward parking. And then we kind of use that, even if it's not correct, it'd be something, because at some point we're gonna have, we're gonna have a cost side, we're gonna have a benefit side, and then we're gonna have a trickle down side, because benefit should add to more benefit, not less benefit. So anyway, I think parking, I agree with you. I think parking is one of the least known issues that we have in Columbia.
So, yeah, so exactly. So trying to understand that a little better. And I don't know what that looks like, but we'd like to be able to come back to you with better data. So these are the current kind of guidelines we worked under. In the past, the city put them in ordinance, the county just used them as guidelines. But the big number there was the 50% for 10 years. And that was kind of the rule of thumb we've used just because that's the way it started with the student housing. No good reason for it. It seems somewhat arbitrary.
Can you go back a second? One of the things that I've been toying with in my head, and talked to Jeff about it a little bit, and maybe Tyler and Will, would we offer somebody, it's the same math, 5 years, 100%. And because a lot of people would rather just have it, it doesn't cost us anything, but it gives them the value of that money sooner rather than later. So it's one of the things that I'd like to consider as we go through this is from, our perspective, I don't think it really matters. And I'd rather get it over with, and a lot of them would rather have the money sooner rather than later, so.
Well, and we've talked about this. My question, Jeff, and I know y'all are gonna dig into the research. After 5 years, where does that bump? Who does that go to? Does that go to the renter if we're talking about multifamily? Because that can be pretty significant, if you lose that percentage. I mean, that's a bump of maybe $175 a bed, which, maybe in the student housing model isn't that significant to the overall scheme, but if you look towards that workforce, that multifamily in the northeast areas like that, I think that needs to be layered in and considered.
Probably so. I still think the market drives rents versus property tax. And so my answer to that would be we need more housing to have lesser rent values. I mean, that's what I see. I mean, you can put up anything you want today to be filled tomorrow. Anything. So it rents, everybody that's, and I want to name developers, every developer that's established rents on a new project has gone way above what they consider the market rent, way above, only to find out they didn't go high enough.
So all right. So do you think that's rings true for developments outside of the city? So out northeast areas like that we don't touch the incentive packages that y'all give them. We don't know the rent rates. Do you think that's true countywide?
That there's the demand, that they can raise rates.
Build it, they're gonna come rent it regardless.
I think the
And the
market.
folks that can't afford it are never gonna be able to afford it because until you meet that tipping point.
I think so. I mean, I'm not an economist, but I think the answer is in this particular market, the needs outrun the options.
Yeah, I think
It goes back to your figure of 47%. That's such an outlier figure. It can't be just an unnatural force. It has to be something that's institutionalized in our market, and then we just don't have enough housing.
I think there was pent-up supply, or pent-up need for
Yeah.
more housing over the last decade that we didn't address through a program like this. On the term, the developers and lawyers that represent them have said that they prefer to have 10 years and a lesser percentage than 5 years and or lesser term and a greater percentage. One thing that came up in the most recent county council meeting was they were saying, how long can we require affordable or attainable housing? And we suggested it should be the term of the incentives,
gotcha,
which is 10 years. The council person asked, could you extend that, make it 20 years, make them hold it like New York rent controlled apartments, They said you can, but there's a balance with the
Can't
developer.
until they say I'm not doing it.
That's pretty much the answer.
Yeah.
And it probably had some unintended consequences. What it did was after the 10 years, if you kept, or you forced them to keep the rents down, then the developer would quit investing. And you see what you see sometimes on Two Notch Road where people just have walked off from the property and they're just taking as much as they can get. So this is our list of public infrastructure. Our attorney said you could consider this as one of the things that you want to address. You know, some of the things that we've used it for was eradication of blight. For instance, corner Elmwood and Bull. I think they actually renamed that project Urban Redevelopment or Urban Renewal. But there's a few cases where we've incentivized remediation. I think it never came to fruition, but the ballpark where we dealt with streams and flooding. There's a lot of things we could address through this program. Let me go ahead and jump into recommendations. So we tended to look at this on a 3-year basis. Our suggestion would be let's look at the next 3 years.
Jeff, let me just say something before you go through this list. This is a recommendation from the Columbia Area Development Partnership.
And we have presented it to the council,
so-
EDC at the county level too.
Okay. But ultimately, these are voted on by the local governments members.
That's right, yeah. The partnership had input on these, but a lot of this was kind of where we arrived after doing some research. We already talked about doing more research, coming back to you with data. Again, let's work toward goals and let's consider how we can sunset this program if we can, or whether leave it in place for to address certain items or priorities. We've already mentioned the parking. Let's do a parking study. Let's look at it case by case. Let's understand what we need. There are two components there. One is we need to beef up our application. We're not getting enough information on the front end. For instance, if it's happening in the city, we'd like to know that they are already in conversations with you guys and going through application processes and rezoning. We'd like to make that all part of the application so that we don't provide incentives and then find out that they haven't done their legwork. We also suggested an application fee of $6,000. That's not about raising money. That is about making them have a little skin in the game. We go back to that big number, the $3.3 billion we've approved. More than half of that never got built. They're spinning our wheels on. So we just need to make the developers care enough to spend a little bit of money. What happens with that money? We don't need it for operations or anything. You know, we're open to how that money gets used. We need to make sure that they're serious when we go through all this process and all this work. The staff, you know, I mentioned just the challenge of we're the only county in South Carolina doing this. Greenville has about 7 or 8 people on their county, their GADC, their staff comparable to us. Charleston about the same, 7 or 8 folks. We're at 4, and we're doing this whole program over and above the normal traditional economic development, Scout Motors, all the rest. So we're overworked and understaffed, so we need to beef up the staff on this.
Same.
So, and then the clawback, you know, you mentioned half of them didn't move forward. A few of them did move forward in different capacities, different densities than we were led to believe. How do we take that into consideration with your recommendations?
So the clawbacks, it's kind of self-fulfilling. So if they don't invest, they don't get the incentives. But to the extent that you guys approve something, understanding one set of criteria, and then how you get that money back, that's a good question. That's something I think we can work together on to make sure that your goals, your objectives are met through the county's incentive.
Well, I think matching during the local government planning process might be a way to do that. What you sold us first, does it match what you're getting, you're pulling a permit for? might be the easiest solution. I don't know.
And the other big component of this would be making sure that we are communicating. And there's been some discussions about bringing the city into the conversation at the partnership level, so that we're making a decision, City of Columbia is sitting at the table, and you're expressing your desires as well. But I think that's part of a better future for all of us. I mean, we just can't operate in silos.
Agree, completely agree.
Yeah. So you talked about sunsetting the program. So there's really, there's two parts to that. By definition, every project sunsets itself in 10 years. But then there's a greater economic development tipping point, where we say we're good, but at the same time though, at that economic tipping point, there should be property tax relief that would then reset the market, so you don't need it. So I think that's what's always in my brain, is where those two things come together, which is the by definition sunsetting process of 10 years, and then where we're at from is it 6 billion, 10 billion, 12 billion, 15 billion? Where is that magic number where all this kind of comes together? And I loved your list on infrastructure. I hope you stole that for the model. But that's part of this is, you got to reinvest in yourself, but there's also should be something for the taxpayer down the road, to even the playing field for those of us who don't get this kind of stuff. So, if you own a rental house, you're just paying for it, full freight. Which I think also artificially inflates rents more than anything, is that concept. So, anyway, I like the concept of looking down the road at where all this makes more sense from a strategic standpoint. So, I like
So
that.
if we move to start sunsetting it as the market and our wish list, we get through it, do you have any other models in mind for like just those properties, wherever they are, that are just too far gone without incentives? Let's just, go back. If there's so much environmental, so much infrastructure work that needs to be done, and we don't have this mechanism in place, do you think that there's models out there that we can follow for those one-off, like troubled development, moving them forward?
Yeah, we haven't researched that, but this has been a tool to address those.
Right.
There's a number of examples, but like Richland Mall is a classic one.
Yeah.
But for this program,
Right.
that never happens.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it's a scenario where the program itself doesn't exist, but we still have individual priority properties, just like when y'all have a traditional manufacturing recruitment project that comes in, that you still say.
Well, it's just
this-
lying
this
there and
merits-
waiting, essentially.
This merits an incentive. It's just
Yeah.
done as a one-off.
All right. So what do you need from us?
Nothing.
That's it?
Yeah, well, if you have recommendations outside of these, or you'd like to change these, certainly just give me feedback. But more than anything else, we just want to have the conversations, certainly start building up more conversations so that we can be more strategic.
Okay.
Can we share the presentation with
Yeah, I already got it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. That's awesome. All right.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to the next run at this stuff.
Great, thank you.
All right, Councilman Brennan, you wanna?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to enter into executive session for discussion of matters relating to the proposed location, expansion, or provision of services, encouraging location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body pursuant to Code 3470A5, 2221 Divine Street, Capital City Ballpark, 2001 Taylor Street, Divine Street Pedestrian Bridge, Project WF, Project Cardina, Project Stoa, Project Olympus, update on Convention Center.
Oof. All right, got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, motion and a second. Would you read the roll?
Mr. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All righty.